Shouwa Genroku Rakugo Shinjuu is not like most anime out there. It's not about teenagers in school who are in some sort of contest to win some sort of prize. It's just characters following their dreams of telling stories for entertainment. They're all doing it for their own reasons, not for money or to win some sort of prize or something. They're doing it because they love it. And I feel like Shouwa Genroku is the type of show that, because it's just a little bit different, that it's not really going to be that popular amongst people. And I do feel like this is a show which is criminally underappreciated, especially when you consider the fact that it ended last season and it's not even a full year old yet and nobody's really talking about this. So I felt like I needed to review this show and just share the way that I feel about it with you all. But I just wanted to say, man, like this show right here, for the season that it first came out, it was like the 12th most popular show, which was under Dimension W, Dagashi Kashi, and even Grimgar. And the second season didn't do much better. I think it was like top 19 most popular of that season, which is pretty bad, meaning that it's going to be below shows like Handshakers. It's like 2 ranks below Handshakers, and I think it was like 7 or 8 ranks below Chaos Child, so this really did fly under the radar. The story of Shouwa Genroku heavily centers around an ancient form of Japanese storytelling called Rakugo, meaning fallen words, which has its roots dating back to the mid-1700s, where a man would sit on stage and tell a story by acting out several of its characters all by himself. Now, the art of Rakugo is not only your ability to change your voice, but also the ability to convey the story through your gestures as well. Despite the growing popularity of radio, television, internet, and fidget spinners, Rakugo is still being performed today, and performances can even be found on YouTube. A few of these are even being performed in English. And personally, I think it would help if you watch some of these English performances before getting into the anime series. Not necessarily because the anime does a bad job of conveying what Rakugo is. I think they do a great job of explaining that, but it's not a cultural staple for us, so it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of extra knowledge before you come into the anime. The story begins prior to the events of World War II and finishes several generations later. As the plot continues, so does the technological advancements of Japan, which creates the atmosphere of Rakugo being on life support, leaving its practitioners and fans struggling to keep it alive through several generations. The story of Rakugo follows 5 main characters, beginning in episode 1 with Yotaro as he is being released from prison. With nowhere else to turn, he decides to devote himself to his newfound passion Rakugo, as it had inspired him during his incarceration. He seeks out the last remaining Rakugo master, Yurakute Yakumo, in hopes of becoming his apprentice. Yakumo, formerly known as Kikuhiko, is essentially the salty dog of the Rakugo game, as he's basically a disagreeable and eccentric old man. Living with Yakumo is his begrudged stepdaughter, Konatsu, who blames Yakumo for the death of her father, Sukeroku, who was another potential heir to the Yakumo name alongside Yurakute. Konatsu, like her father, shares his passion for Rakugo. However, Yakumo refuses to teach her because he believes it to be an art for men alone to perform, and that's the way that it's always been. However, this doesn't stop Konatsu from practicing Rakugo in secret. Konatsu's biological father, Sukeroku, was a carefree and incredibly charismatic Rakugo practitioner who devoted his life to the craft, only seconded by booze and women. Now, Miyokichi is a geisha turned prostitute whose ties into the aforementioned characters will be left out due to spoilers, but what I can say is that she is a potential love interest that creates a complicated love triangle here, and her true personality is actually a bit of a mystery because pleasing men is a part of her work, and she seems to take that part of work home with her at night. Despite being a pivotal character to the story, she is my least favorite because she is manipulative and intends to distract our main characters from their personal goals. The plot progression in Shouwa Genroku is slightly non-linear, where we have the first episode that's set in the past, the second episode is set even further in the past, and the first season is going to catch up to the events of the first episode, and then season 2 is just going to continue the story on from that point. So it's definitely something that may sound confusing, but trust me, it is totally coherent and very easy to follow. And I feel like they did this for a very good reason, because in episode 1, we see that Yakumo is already an older man. He's the last remaining master of Rakugo that's left, so when we go back to his past, we already know that he achieves his goal, so it changes our focus away from will he achieve his goal over to how does he achieve his goal, and also what happened to Konatsu's father. Now, this is an anime that features an incredible amount of characterization and development here. They did a great job with that, where you have a character that enters the screen for the very first time, and you can already tell what type of character they are through their dialogue or their body language, and they do a great job of body language in this anime with all the subtle movements and everything. They really do a lot of good work with that, because I notice a lot of anime, they'll do the whole thing where the exaggerated movements and the characters flailing their arms around. I'm not a big fan of that with the deformed faces and stuff. I would rather see the subtle movements and learn it from that right there. As far as the development itself goes, I feel like these characters, they're just like normal people. They have bad judgment at times, and their development is not always something that's for their better. Sometimes they develop in a bad way, and they need to pull themselves up out of their rut just because they're human just like all of us, and they make mistakes. And I really feel like the people who created this, they did just an outstanding job of creating all of these characters. So not only did they do well with the characterization and character development, but they also did great with the character interaction here as well. A good example being Sukeroku and Yakumo, who, like, Yakumo is an introvert and Sukeroku is an extrovert, and the conflicting personality types really brought the most out of their personality for us to see, where sometimes they would say something that would otherwise remain dormant within them, and something that we really can't tell from just looking at them alone. So I think they did a great job in that, and it's not just those characters. They do these pairings quite often, where you have one person that's an introvert and the other character is an extrovert, and I just feel like all of the characters in the anime work very well together. So have you ever heard of the phrase, if you're the nail that sticks out, you're gonna get hammered down? Because that's exactly how it is within Rakugo here. It's a very traditional sort of entertainment, and that makes it very difficult for Konatsu, Yotaro, and also Sukeroku as well. For Yotaro and Sukeroku, they're actually finding difficulties because they're very charismatic characters, and the art of Rakugo is basically telling a story that's going to bring out a single emotion from the audience, but they tell it in a way that slightly changes it with their mannerisms, or maybe they add a little bit to it, and this will actually cause the audience to both laugh and cry instead of just doing one or the other. So, you know, you've got the older generation of people in Rakugo who are basically the elites. They're not too big of a fan of it, not only because it's changing what they've worked on for so long, but because they see a newcomer is probably getting a better reaction than them. A little bit of salt there, I suspect, but we also have Konatsu as well, who is a woman, and she just can't practice Rakugo publicly because she's a woman, so that is another thing that makes it very difficult for her as well. Now, this actually creates discourse which lasts throughout the entire series of whether Rakugo should change in order to stay up with the times, because some people believe that Rakugo should just stay with its traditions and just die out whenever people lose interest in it, and other people feel like this is something that's too great to lose, and we need to make slight little improvements here and there in order to evolve and stay relevant with the people who are watching it so that they can enjoy it for years to come. So that's definitely something that's talked about a lot here, and you have characters that are doing Rakugo for different reasons. Like Yakumo, for example, is someone who is a very traditionalist when it comes to his storytelling, because he takes the same stories that everybody else is telling, and he just tells them in a way that he's trying to perfect himself in each time he tells a story through his mannerisms and through the way that he says the words and everything. So it's definitely something he's trying to improve upon. And then you have Sukeroku, who is doing it because he loves the sense of entertainment, and you can tell that he really loves the look on the audience's faces whenever he's telling the stories, and they really are enjoying it. So it is a completely different type of atmosphere with the two characters. Now, even though Yakumo and Sukeroku are actually both apprentices for the same person, and his name can only be passed on to one of them in order to continue the line of storytellers here, it's not something that is really much of a competition, and Sukeroku understands this because he knows how traditional Rakugo is, and he knows that he's very unorthodox and how charismatic he is and how he changes a few small things up, and he realizes that people don't really like the fact that he's getting a better response from the audience out of this, so he knows that he's not going to be the successor here just because they don't like him because he's in there stirring things up. Now, there's a lot of backstage politics when it comes to Rakugo, but Yakumo doesn't have this cakewalk either. He's definitely someone who is also struggling with Rakugo as well, where he's trying to basically define himself through Rakugo, but he's also struggling to understand what exactly Rakugo is, because you see that there's an internal struggle here as well, where he's seeing that the reaction that Tsukuroku is getting, where people are actually loving his Rakugo, and this really changes his perspective on Rakugo. Now, here's something really interesting to think about. If you agree with me or disagree, you can let me know in the comment section below, but Miyokichi, they try and go into her struggles here, where she's trying desperately to win the heart of Yakumo, but I feel like there's a lot of development to be had on her character, but it's just hidden behind the veil of the story and the setting here, because here you have her character in the beginning, she's a geisha, and then after the war is over, she is a prostitute. So something happened in between there that caused her to have this development. And if you guys don't know about Japanese history, look up something called comfort women, where around the time of World War II, they had women who they just forced them to become prostitutes and just passed them around the military. So I believe that that could have been one of the things that caused her development right there, but then again, that is a really egregious act right there, and I think that might have been something that's too strong for the story. That would probably take away, like, it would probably make us focus more on her character than some of the other things that they're trying to make us focus on within the story, so they may have omitted that, or it could have been a form of censorship on TV. I don't know how they feel about that in Japan. I can't imagine that it's something that they can easily talk about over there, because like I said, it's a very terrible thing. You can look it up if you haven't heard about it yet. Anyways, that's just something that I feel is really motivating her to get with Yakumo, because when I watched it, before I really thought about the potential of her being one of the comfort women, I thought that she was with him because she really, really loved him, or wanted to be with him because she really loved him. But then after I thought about it, she may have realized that due to the fact that he has traditional values in his Rakugo, that he would become the successor. And you got to imagine, if you're a master entertainer over there in Japan, I mean, you're going to be raking in that money. So she must have known, like, this is a way for her to pursue her own self-preservation here because of what she does. It's not something that is a really happy life for anybody. So, you know, I was thinking about that too. Overall, I just felt that she was a very manipulative character. I really didn't like her as a character, to be honest, but this is just something that I thought about. Maybe you guys agree or disagree. Let me know about that in the comment section below, because I'm interested in hearing what you guys think. I also couldn't shake the feeling that Yakumo could have been bad for the other team, especially considering how close he would like to get to Tsukuroku sometimes. And yes, I know they were very close friends, but you can't deny the history that anime has and how popular romances are within certain pockets of the fandom. I would also like to point out that with the exception of this story, its original creator has published nothing but yaoi, including the title called Shinjuku Lucky Hole. I'll let you imagine what that one means. Now, in addition to Yakumo's vague sense of sexuality, you're going to be asking a lot of other questions, because they do give you answers to certain things, but they're either going to be vague answers or just not an answer at all, and you're just left wondering, did they just tell me the truth? I don't believe it sometimes. And you're going to be asking questions like, is this going to turn into a yaoi at any moment? Who is the father of that baby? Who is the father of this baby? I feel like I'm watching a soap opera when I say that, but you're going to be asking these questions, and you get vague answers, or sometimes they give you an answer that you have enough reason to not believe what people are saying here, because, you know, sometimes people can lie, and that's the great thing about the anime, is that people are not perfect. They make bad choices. They can tell you the truth just as easily as they can lie to you in certain cases here, so you don't know some of these answers. And I do understand that the questions that we have are probably not major plot points, but I feel like they're still relevant because they impact major characters of the story. And I do know this is an anime with a massive scope, not massive like Legend of the Galactic Heroes or anything, but big. Like, you're going through multiple generations of lives here, and you're getting lots of detail about these characters. They do a great job of that, but it's just some of these questions that we have that are going to leave you thinking and wondering about the answers to them. And I want to talk a bit about the ending here too, and no spoilers, by the way. You saw the title, you saw the thumbnail, we're not doing spoilers here, but there was this pivotal change at the end, something massive. And when I say end, I don't mean the last episode, I mean the last few episodes. Something big happens, and the way that they portray this, I feel like if they had portrayed it slightly differently, then the audience would be impacted with a massive wave of emotion from this. I won't tell you what you're going to be feeling because I don't want to spoil it for you there, but it's definitely something I feel like they could have handled it a bit differently, but at the same time, I would understand if they did it for a reason, you know, the way that they did. I just don't know what exactly that reason is. And speaking as for the ending itself, I feel like they had an ending that, aside from the questions that we had earlier, it wrapped up all the loose ends, and it's one of my favorite types of endings in anime. I just love these types of endings, and it really does leave you with this feeling, this pit, like, what am I going to do next? And this is one of the anime for me that I didn't want to watch any more anime for the next few days after that. I just wanted to sit and just let it defragment in my brain so that I could just soak it all in. It's one of these shows. It's actually really good. As far as the presentation is concerned, Shouwa Genroku is so beautiful on so many levels. Of course, the character designs were really on point, not only with the body language, but you could tell so much about how these characters are feeling through their eyes. And I'm not going to say that it's totally consistent. I would say it's like 95% consistent. Sometimes you look in the audience and the people's faces are a little bit off there, but it's not really that big of a problem. It's just something that I noticed because I review anime and I pay attention to all little details and stuff like that. So it's not really a big deal, but they did just a great job. Like, you can see some of the characters sitting up there telling the Rakugo stories, and while they're portraying and like they're doing all the stuff as part of the story, and they're doing the body language that coincides with the actions of the characters in their story, you could also sense the way that they feel about themselves as they're telling the story. Maybe they clench their hand, maybe there's sweat going down their neck or something like that. They really do go into detail here, and you can feel, okay, this person feels very nervous about what he's doing, or this person is very delighted that the audience is reacting in this way. And I also think they did a great job, like I said, with the body language, and it's not just with people who are telling the stories, but it's just in general, the way that people act. You can tell so much about their personalities through that, and I love it. Hands down over the people flailing their arms and the deformed faces and stuff. I know there's totally different types of anime with that, but I'm just not a fan of when anime does that sort of thing. I prefer the subtlety with that. And I also wanted to say that I really enjoyed the cinematography here as well, and how they included the audience in with the Rakugo performances, and how you'll see the characters and they're reacting like, oh, I'm very nervous about the story, but I'm still doing a pretty good job of it, or maybe I'm doing a little slip here and there or something like that, and they include the audience's reaction into that, and it kind of feeds back into the storyteller, whoever it may be, and you can see how he reacts to how the audience is reacting. So it's definitely something like you could really sense the feeling of so many characters here. It's almost like you're in the room. And I also wanted to say that as far as the cinematography is concerned, they did a great job of giving you a feeling of the emotion. And maybe it's just me because, you know, it is all going to be a subjective experience anyways, but there were times when we had this establishing shot that was shot outside, whether it was raining or snowing, and for me, this is always just a very relaxing time for me because you're inside, maybe you don't have nothing to do, and you just relax. You watch some anime, you listen to some music or something, you read, I don't know, to me it's a very relaxing time. And when I saw these establishing shots that were snowing or raining, and then we went inside to see characters that had their headset on, they were sitting in front of the record player, they were listening to Rakugo on vinyl records, and you could hear it, and the imperfections in the Rakugo is something that's very warm feeling. Or maybe they're sitting there at the table, they're drinking some tea, and they're just listening to Rakugo on the radio while they're reading or something like that, and just relaxing. It was a very great experience in watching this, and it was a total package in terms of animation, and it just made me feel like the world was just this warm, living place there. And I also wanted to talk about the passage of time here too, and I know that's something that's kind of related to the plot, but they do a great job of having items become heirloom quality, honestly, because there'll be some of the items that are passed on between the characters, because you know they're going through generations here, and somebody gives an item to somebody else, then 30, 40, 50 years later, you see one of the characters, he pulls out that same item, and it's not looking the same. It is worn, it is dirty a little bit. And you can tell that this person really took very good care of it. And it's not just with items, it is with buildings, like the building that they perform the Rakugo in. You can see over time that it's just getting worn down. You can see that the steps are just getting warped and just worn down by so many people traveling up and down them to have performances on the stage here. It's really an awe-inspiring experience in watching this. Now let's talk a bit about the background music here. What you're going to be hearing mostly is traditional Japanese music, which, as I always say, if you're doing a show that's set in old-timey Japan, regardless of what age, you got to do the traditional music because it fits in so well. I don't know if that's accurate for the period or not. I don't think they'd be too big into jazz or something during that time, so they have the traditional Japanese music in the background, and that's actually what they use to play in the Rakugo performer, so it's something that really blends into the atmosphere very well. As far as the openings and closings go, I think we had 2 different openings and closings each. My favorite was opening 1, but they were all very good. And as far as the voice acting is concerned, I don't speak Japanese, so I can't really tell you whether or not they did a good or bad job. I think they did a good job. The only thing is, though, I feel like this will be a bit better. I'm probably going to be dodging shoes up here, but I feel like this will be a better experience for some people if it were dubbed, because I noticed sometimes that it was hard for me to read the subtitles as they were going across the screen, because you would have a character that's on screen and they're doing their Rakugo performance, so you've got text at the bottom, and then you've got somebody that's in the background talking, and they've got text at the top. So you've got multiple lines of dialogue going on, and in a split second you've got to read all those dialogues from the different characters and decipher who's saying what, and it's kind of confusing. Sometimes you got to go back and do that, and I know one is from the story that the character is telling, and it's likely a story that you've probably already heard before, because they sometimes do the same stories here, because it is a very traditional sort of entertainment here, but it's definitely something that can be confusing, and it is an issue that would instantly be rectified subconsciously if this wasn't dubbed, because you just hear the 2 different voices at once and your brain just automatically picks it up, and that's just something that we miss out on because we're not native Japanese speakers. So moving on to my final thoughts for Shouwa Genroku Rakugo Shinjuu, I feel like this, for a lot of people, will be a game changer, and this is something I recommend to everybody out there, and for me, it has restored my faith in new anime. Not just this show, there's plenty of other shows too. Onihei, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Always JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. There's also shows like Sakamoto Desu Ga. I mean, it's not got this deep story or anything like that. Not every anime has to have a deep story. It's just really, really funny, and I really like it despite the fact that it's set in school. But I feel like this is a show which is going to be a game changer for a lot of people, and there's a lot of people out there, they don't want to watch any old anime, and I always tell them that they are depriving themselves of the full anime experience, because there's so many shows out there that are old that are just amazing. But at the same time, I know that there's just as many people out there that say new anime is all garbage, it's just edgy garbage, and they won't give it the time of day. And I feel like, of course, edgy, yes, anime is edgy now, but it's always been edgy. We just have redefined what edgy is, because the point of being edgy is to push the envelope, and anime has always been edgy. But I understand, you know, if you're loving anime because you can appreciate it as a form of art and you can understand the potential of its storytelling, then you owe it to yourself to watch the new anime, because if there's nobody watching the new anime that can appreciate anime as a form of art and who really understands where anime can go in terms of storytelling, then there will be nobody to appreciate anime like this. And that's exactly why this was less popular than Dimension W or Handshakers, is because a lot of the people who would appreciate anime like this, they're not watching it because they think all new anime is garbage, which it's not, and I think everybody should be watching Shouwa Genroku Rakugo Shinjuu. On top of that, I just want to say, if you enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe and stay up to date with all my latest anime reviews and discussions and list videos. If you'd like to help support the channel, be sure to check out the Patreon. We've got all sorts of goals over there. We watch movies together. You guys can request anime reviews and that sort of thing. So if you enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.